Hello, this is Pi. I've decided to do some post-commentary for this run. This is Stranger 100%, which is basically 100% for the DLC Echoes of the Eye, except for one thing, which is because we like to have it organized by location, because then theoretically you could do this kind of a category for any planet. So that's just kind of how the category developed. So it's to get every ship log from the Stranger and from the Dream Worlds. And the only thing missing from the DLC would be the radio tower. So we don't go to the radio tower, and that's just because of the whole location thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is set up my ship in a really specific position, which is because I need it to be in this specific position for a trick later. Now I'm just going to enter the Stranger as fast as possible, and I'm going to enter through the hangar because we need to do lowlands first, because it has to be done before the flood, and we're going to do all the dream stuff like in the middle of the route, so we don't have time to do it after. Now we're just going to grab an artifact, which we're not going to use for a while, but we need to kind of carry it downstream with us, so that when we do need it, we have it, because there isn't an artifact in Cinder Isles, unfortunately. And then we need to get a lantern and take it over to the projector, and then we're going to read all the slides in this area. And I have the option on to freeze time while translating text, which also applies to slide reels. So time is going to be frozen whenever I'm reading slides. Or viewing slides, I should say. And here we kind of enter through the exit and exit through the entrance, which is kind of funny. And we don't use the shortcut because the shortcut is slow. And now while I'm doing this, I'm also kind of using my flashlight to open that door, because when I'm done with all these slides, I want to exit through that door. And I don't want to spend time opening the door, so if you do it right, you can get the door to be open. See right there. Which is a bit tricky to do while you're doing all of this movement, but it's not too bad. And now we just need to read this last one. And then we're going to leave. I use two different mashing techniques there, because the button is your primary tool action, which for me is right click. So I'm mashing right click, and I have two different methods. But yeah, now we're going to put the artifact in the boat and push it downstream, which is kind of cool. It's a trick called FedEx Water. But yeah, we're gonna grab that later, that further downstream. I'm gonna just go in here to get another reel. And yeah, all this movement is kind of tricky. Here we want to launch our scout ahead of us because there's a light door up here. So if we put our scout here, it starts opening slightly faster. Saves a few seconds. And now we want to go get the artifact. And unfortunately you can't jump all the way up here, so you need to land and get some boost. And again, I'm just going to leave that and grab it later. And we need to come up here for this projection, and conveniently there's a lantern here, so that routes in really well. Now we're going to read all of the slides in this area, except for the one in the secret passage room. So we're going to read both these basement ones, and this one, which we got from the burn slide room earlier. But yeah, like I said earlier, I have two different matching techniques I use. One is two-handed, where I move my left hand onto the mouse, and then I just use like both index fingers, which is a little bit faster for me, but it requires moving my left hand off the keyboard. But then when I get to near the end of the slides, I switch to one-handed mashing with just my right hand, and I can use either my middle finger or my index finger for that, and it's a little slower, but It's just so that, like, I can use the two-handed mashing to mash faster, but also my left hand is back on the keyboard when it's time to leave. And here you need to actually look at that thing on the ground to get the log. I killed one of my runs earlier and it was kind of annoying. And now it's finally time to do the dream stuff. And you'll notice on my timer, it's about 5.5 minutes. But that includes some time where I was on slides, so time was paused. So first I'm gonna die, and this is just because there's some weirdness with loading. And I'm not really sure why, but doing that allows you to sleep longer and saves more time than it takes to do the extra death, so yeah, that's just one of the quirks of this route. But yeah, now we're gonna sleep until just under 7 minutes into the loop, which is when the stranger starts moving away from the sun. And because, like I said, time was paused for a lot of that, we're gonna sleep until, like, I use the timer, just the sum of the timer plus however long I want to sleep. I need it to be about 7:40. I have a number in my splits that says sleep to 7:37, but I keep changing that. But anyway, now we're going to go over here and get the well log, which is actually like under this rock here. And now, because we should set up the ship in that specific position earlier, it fell into the dream world. And we kind of like need to do that to get our suit back. And now we're just going to fly around the dream world getting all the logs. But yeah, the dream world kind of loads in. It's sort of near the stranger, but it's like, it's outside the stranger. But yeah, we need the stranger's movement to like get the ship to fall down. It's kind of weird, very specific. And now we're just going to fly around the dream world hitting all of these specific triggers for all the logs. Which was actually kind of annoying to test before this trick was discovered, but once this trick was discovered, we actually can get these dings. So whenever I get a ship log, there's like a little beep. That's kind of what I use to know like both where the triggers are and like whether I got the log. And for some reason I didn't hear a beep there for the covered bridge log, but I did end up getting it, so. And I think for that the singing house log, you actually need to look at the singing house, because again, I lost a run there to not getting that log, even though I did like the exact same movement, but I think I just didn't look at it directly. I don't know, kind of weird. Here I'm going to use my scout to load the next area so I can see, because if you like come in through these walls, you can bust the ship up, which is a problem. And I think in all my time running this game, this category is like the most sensitive to ship damage, because having the headlights makes this section so much easier. And so if the electrical system or the headlights break, then you can't really see anything. And of course you still need the thrusters as always, and the reactor to not break. But that's way more systems than we usually care about. Plus, at the very start, the ship kind of falls out of the sky, and it's very likely to get busted up doing that. Here I lost a little bit of time to the ship being in not the best position, but it's not really worth taking the time to set that up, because, like you saw, even if you do end up in a bad position, you can always just fly back up, so. Now we watch this cutscene. This cutscene is one of the cutscenes that got changed in the latest patch. Speaking of the latest patch actually kind of broke the old route, because it used to be that 2 of the slide reels had collision while the rest did not, and we used that to our advantage. You can watch some old runs if you wanna see that, but basically we used it to get into the laboratory from the opposite direction that you're supposed to. But that doesn't work anymore. But fortunately, we were able to find this new route, which does it in 2 loops instead of 1, and ends up actually being a little bit faster. So fortunately, new patch actually is viable, which is good for accessibility. Now here, I need to actually go up the elevator shaft because there's a log for, like, reaching the archive. And I'm gonna have to do that for the second archive as well, but not the third one. Because the third one, you're actually intended to be able to get to from this area. Now I just have a bunch more slides to mash through. I thought about rebinding the mash key to something else, but scroll wheel doesn't really work. Like if you scroll the scroll wheel, it only mashes once per like scroll, so it's extremely slow. And also, it's bound to the primary tool action key, which, if I rebound that, it would mess up my scout boosting. And scout boosting is way more important than ever so slightly faster mashing. And here's me going up the elevator shaft again. You need to open those code things for logs. And yeah, some of these reels, you only need to watch partway through to a certain point. Especially the ones in archive. Although most of the ones back on the Stranger, you actually have to watch the entire thing, but... Having the ship log notifications with this route is really nice, because I remember on the older route you just kind of had to hope that you got all the logs. There was absolutely no indication. Now I need to go refuel, which is actually why I parked the ship kind of in the center. There just is not enough fuel to do all of this on one tank. And that's all I need the ship for. And this is the one you don't need to fly up the elevator shaft, because this is the one you can just walk to if you like do the intended thing where you jump off a boat. So there's a trigger for getting that log on that side. Now it's time for the puzzles, which of course we're going to skip because we can just fly over to the things and extinguish. And this is a little bit of a movement mistake. I should have waited for a little bit more boost, but oh well, it's not that big of a time loss. And here I need to jump over the invisible bridges. Some of them are like suspended in the air. And they made this thing longer, which is, I guess, good. That probably saves a tiny amount of time. And they changed this cutscene too, but it's the same length, roughly. But yeah, I just wanted to run on current patch because it's current patch. And old patch is probably slightly easier, but it's not actually disadvantaged in terms of time. At least, not that I know of. We do know of several glitches that have been patched, so if any of those glitches ever turns out to be useful, then we might have to downpatch, but for now, current patch is viable for this category. And of course for non-DLC categories, the new patch didn't really change anything, other than performance. Now here we want to start taking damage. Without the suit, there isn't really a good way to die in the prisoner's room, so you actually have to walk all the way back out. Unless you routed it such that you can just quit out here. But that's not how we routed it. Because since we have the suit, we can just slam ourselves into the ground to die, which is pretty fast. But yeah, we do want to do some other stuff in the Stranger after this, because, like I said, this is a 2-loop route. In the second loop, at the end, we don't really have any fuel, and going to get more fuel would be extremely slow. So yeah, there was just this complex routing puzzle related to the Hidden Gorge that resulted in 2-loop being faster. And now we have even more really long cutscenes. This cutscene kind of got old after the first few times, honestly. But yeah, it's a good explanation of what happened, I guess. Poor prisoner. And there he goes. And I had to do that weird, this weird button presses to, like, have the vision torch be on, but put my scout away. Now this cutscene never gets old. I love this cutscene. This is the best song in the entire soundtrack, too. Of course, this being a speedrun, we have the short version of the cutscene. There's 2 segments that you can add to this cutscene. For those who didn't know, there's the segment with the interloper, which doesn't actually add any time, it just the scene of the Nomai dying has the interloper in it. And then there's the scene with like the Nomai finding the signal and warping to Dark Bramble and all that. And that one is going to be missing because it's slow. But yeah, in a full game run, you would want to do the Stranger segment early enough that you haven't triggered that additional cutscene, but it's okay to have the interloper one. So yeah, the route's pretty flexible for full game runs, fortunately. We tend to just kind of put the RNG stuff first. Man, what a great cutscene. And I just need to die as fast as possible. Okay, now we can go to the secret passage because we opened it earlier. And I've been thinking that it might actually be a little more optimal to maybe sleep a little bit longer there so that the dam breaks, because then the water level will be lower in Reservoir. But I think that's pretty minor. And yeah, we're going to Reservoir now, so we're gonna scout boost across the ring. This might seem slow, but I mean, you can see how fast this is. This really does not take very long. And of course, you know, in doing the routing, we timed all of this stuff. And yeah, another interesting quirk about this route is that since we already did the prisoner stuff in the same loop, and we're playing at 1.1.12, the coffin is open. Hooray. And now I am going to sleep, because now I do want the water to be lower. But I think it would be better to sleep that time at the previous fire instead of this one. But again, I think that's pretty minor, it's not really a big deal. And now I need to go up here for the projection, which gives you a rumor. And I used to refuel in there too, but I don't actually need any more refuels. I have enough fuel for the rest of the loop. And now I'm still holding the reel from Cinder Isle's secret passage room, so now we're gonna put that in. I'm gonna master this real quick, and then we're gonna get the other reel. The really easily missable one, because it's underwater if you get here early. That reel's kind of interesting because it's decently well hidden, and it doesn't really tell you anything. That's it. Just shows the bell being lowered. And here I kind of forgot the password. I haven't been actually doing this route very much because, you know, like I said, we have the old route, the one loop route, which you may have seen me posting a bunch of videos of. And in that route you didn't need that code. Because we had this deloading glitch, but I actually figured out that the deloading glitch is slower, at least for this particular route. There may be other routes or categories where that deloading glitch is useful. And now all we have left is Hidden Gorge. And we triggered that dialogue where Slate tells you to use the ship log to mark your destination. So we need to walk over to him and talk to him to get him to not stop us from going up the elevator. And it's just slightly faster to go over there and talk to him than to go through the longer dialogue that he gives you about the tutorial. And yeah, we're also, because of Slate, we're 2 seconds later, which means we need a different Blind Stranger setup. It's pretty similar, but it's very slightly different. Also, we want to end up like in the center here instead of like way over on the side like we did last time. That was all just figured out by trial and error, basically. And there we open that top door while we go over here. And another cutscene. This is the cutscene where you get really nervous if you're on good pace. So we're going to grab that. We're going to do a deloading glitch here. Basically, we walk into where the game considers us to be in the gorge, put our scout down, walk back into the laboratory so the game considers us not to be in the gorge, then back into gorge and recall the scout. So the game doesn't really properly register that we've re-entered gorge. So when we recall the scout, it deloads, because the scout was all that was keeping it loaded. And now we have this weird state where whenever we launch the scout, everything loads, and whenever we recall the scout, everything deloads. So we can use this to phase through walls and floors and all kinds of stuff. It's a really neat trick. Really difficult to get used to, like, what all the collision is that deloads and stuff. Because you can see some of the collision actually doesn't deload, but some does, so you kind of have to just know what you can stand on and what you can't stand on, and where holes are and stuff. Like that hole there, of course you're not supposed to be able to go through the floor there, but in the deloaded state there's a hole, even though most of the floor around that actually does still have collision. We're going to do the same thing to get the wheels from the basement, which is, this is pretty minor. but if done well, this does save a decent amount of time. Also, there's fuel concerns here. Like, if you don't have enough fuel, it's better to do that basement stuff the other way, so you can just walk. Because you can see I'm kind of getting low on fuel, and I still have all this stuff to do. I haven't looked at any of the slides yet. Which is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to look at all of the slides at once, and there's 6 reels here, which is the most of any area. Yeah, that's one of the few stranger slide reels that actually has a partial viewing you can do. Most of them you have to watch the whole thing. And I like to leave my scout somewhere other than in this room when I do this, because you need that to be loaded, but if the scout is in this room, it produces a bunch of light and you can't really see the screen as well, which is kind of annoying, because you need to see like when you're done with the reel. And I'm going to end time when I quit out to menu, because that's what the split would be in a full game run. And the only thing left to do is the verification. So I'm just going to go and show my ship log, show that I have everything. One of the big reasons for doing this category in the first place is as practice for full game 100% plus DLC runs. And here the game is paused because I alt-tabbed to open up the picture that has like all the ship logs in it. And I'm just going to go through. They did add a log in 1.1.12 to Cove, and it's for entering the room in the Dream Tower with the candles that you blow out to open the secret passage, which we already go into anyway in the route, so even if you were playing on an old version, it wouldn't add anything to the route to get that log, but I did run this on 1.1.12, so I do have that log. But yeah, that doesn't affect the route at all. And that's the end. So yeah, thanks for watching.